My talk will be on smart cities. The introduction will be somewhat general, just introducing to what is going on. I think some of you are already active in the area. But then the core part of my talk would be to introduce what we do in north of Sweden in particular, and how we work with the surrounding society, or municipalities, the industries we're working with, and also end users, which I believe is an important cornerstone. I will go through some projects and talk a little bit about how we train students. We have a group of students here, at least two I see, who will present later on. And we work to some extent on smart cities. What are the main drivers behind smart cities? Well, it's a huge urbanization trend going on, and in not too many years, up to 70% of the world population will live in cities, and 75% of all the energy is actually consumed over there, and the 80% of the green gas emissions comes from cities. Also, the population is aging, so quite many of the projects we're doing tackle that problem with helping elderly to stay longer in their homes and to be more independent longer. Also on the kind of political side, there's kind of a decentralization process going on with more power pushed to the local politicians and the local governors, meaning that if they could be helped out by having more smart solutions, it makes them easier to take on those new tasks. Also this kind of competition among cities, having to attract not only capital but bright people, etc., is also one of the drivers behind the concept of smart cities. The European Union has defined it as a smart city is a place where the traditional networks and services are made more efficient with the use of digital and telecommunication technologies for the benefit of not only the inhabitants but also the businesses active there. So it has clearly technological kind of drivers, but the outcomes are of course on the more business side and the social side. I think I will not read this loudly, but there's quite a lot of long text, and maybe this 2020 targets is the most important thing, where they say that the energy goals for 2020, then 20% or even 30% of the CO2 emissions have been reduced compared to the 1990 levels. 20% of the energy based on consumption should be coming from renewables. From my home country, we're already quite good on that, but on a pan-European level, I'm not so sure we're already there. And there should be at least 20% increase in energy efficiency. So there are quite a lot of projects targeting that, the energy efficiency aspect out of it. Smart cities is, you could do projects in many areas. Smart governance, I already spoke about smart mobility, about smart transportation, smart parking, etc. is obviously an area, smart environment, but also smart living and smart homes is usually targeted in projects, smart economy, and obviously also smart people. So it is a fairly broad concept, as you can see. Already there are quite a lot of solutions. I'm a computer scientist, so I tend to look at it from that perspective. And there has been projects developing SDK, software development kits, or APIs around it, both from here in UK, and this one is particularly from Finland, allowing third-party developers to look to directors to see services. It can be linked open data, it can be APIs for tourists, etc. There's another initiative which is building up a city operating system, and the one I've been working mostly with is the Fireware, which is a European level open platform for smart cities. Also on the standard side, there is quite a lot of things going on, both on the ISO side and BSI, actually, from here in UK, they work on that. Before going over to the local examples, typically the applications come from the low-hanging fruits area, where the revenues are either going up or the costs are taken down at quite low efforts. Smart street lighting typically is a very low-hanging fruit, where the cost of deploying sensors is way lower than the cost savings from taking down the lighting at certain moments during the night. Connected waste bins. Some areas might have half-full houses where the waste bins are not full so often, so if the system can know about it and the or company fetching this waste bin can come at different frequencies. You can save quite a lot of money. Also, smart parking has to do with both enabling drivers with information where to find a parking lot, but also to actually use less space actually in cities that are very densely populated. On the ERP side, electronic road pricing systems, many of the bigger cities have that to tackle congestion, etc. And what they do typically today is to have a dynamic pricing, like booking airline tickets or so, but also on that side. So it's not only depending on the time of the day, but also on kind of the number of cars, etc. If it is congested, the price goes up in order to have people to use their cars less in those situations. So those were the low-hanging fruits, generally speaking. Going over to the North Swedish example, I already said in my introduction that we try really not only to work with companies and governments, but also end users. So I will get back to that a little. I represent Luleå University Technology, almost at the Arctic Circle. One of our campuses even above. So we are quite off from the central parts of Europe. Still, we are very active on the European arena, trying to get hold of projects and network like we're doing today here and many other occasions. We have a long-standing history with working with partners. Our university was opened back in 1971 to supply the local area with competence into mining, I would say, mechanical engineering, but then also computer science and related areas. So this has been going on for a very long time. What has happened also the recent years is that we have had some investments in the area of large-scale data centers. We have a very stable power grid. We have also green energy, obviously, with hydropower. We're also very well connected with fiber. I have to my private home fiber since 8-10 years back. Obviously, cold climate, as I said, 2 degrees yesterday. What they check for is the number of days per year with temperatures exceeding 28 or even 30 degrees. And we very seldom have that in north of Sweden. There are some existing data centers, and they claim we have quite good competence. So we now also market ourselves as the data center region. This is a map of North Sweden with the coastline to the Baltic Sea, with Luleå in the top there, with Facebook as the big investor there. They have 2 very large-scale data centers just next door to our main campus. They started back in 2012, and they opened their second data center last year. And that was the first investment outside the US. They already had 8 or 10 data centers outside or inside US. Now they're opening on Ireland, so that will be their 3rd location outside US. Then we have some smaller ones. I won't go through them, but this is kind of a new thing happening in our area, which has many of them market themselves as very green. We could take Hydra 66 as an example, which is a London headquartered data center company. The CEO is a British guy who decided to move to Boden, a very small city outside Luleå, because of the clean power and these arguments that I had on my previous slide. So it is not only local Swedish guys doing it, but also people from example, US or UK coming over. This is Facebook's one of the data halls in the first data center, so we have to multiply by first 4 and then another 4 or so. This is the UK, somewhat smaller. It's just kind of a timber house with some corridors going out with the servers there. Also, we have a data center research institute located, so we do research in that area, also connected a lot to smart cities. The cities, I won't go through them, government agencies. What is important is then our living lab. Europe has a concept called European Network of Living Labs that was started some, I believe, 15 years ago now by LTU, my university, and 5 others. So we are also running this European network. We are on the board of that. And what is a living lab? Well, it's a test environment where we involve users. And users, this is a fairly old picture. It's not even a smartphone. It was year 2000 or 2001. It's downtown Luleå, along the pedestrian street. There were local stores having the possibility to send out commercials, etc. So by then it was fairly innovative, and by involving some 5,000 or 6,000 end users, we achieved quite good results in that project. So what we do from our living lab is to work with ID generation, could be user interface testing, utility acceptance test of a solution. It can be also companies coming to us working with the overall innovation process and then to handle it professionally. We have, as I said, a large user group, 6,000 created end users from the age of 18 and above. We work typically with third-party producers, SMEs, etc., also some public bodies. And then on top of that, we have an IoT innovation lab that we typically do these projects in. How am I on time, Chris? 3-4 more
minutes. Yeah.
Yes. So I believe the projects I will have to go through quite quickly. I will not go through all of them. Most of them are dedicated to solutions for smart cities. I will speak a little bit about our wireless sensor network for flood prediction. I will speak about smart buying, where we are enhancing the buying experience for users in smart cities. We have Organic City is the flagship project for smart cities in Europe right now, coordinated from Aarhus, Denmark, with London as a big hub also, Santander in Spain. So I promise to be quick, Chris. This is the flooding project we're doing, funded by Swedish Research Council. Flooding is, in my hometown, not a very big problem. We have many big rivers, but most of them are regulated, so we don't have any outbursts. But I believe in this region you have had quite some severe flooding problems. Paris this summer, I remember, other parts of Europe. And my partner here is Bangladesh, and that's one of the countries worldwide having the most problems with flooding. So what we do is to, I might go over here, we are building up a structure where we deploy sensors, we measure the levels, we check the local weather conditions on kind of a micro level, gather everything, and then we have set up decision support system to kind of predict and work with risks, risk management, etc. So we have, this is a picture with me and my PhD student and my collaborator from Bangladesh, and we typically deploy very standard hardware. So it's Arduinos, it's Raspberry Pis, etc. Nothing fancy, but the overall system I think has some value. SenseSmart Region is an ERDF funded project. I believe this part of UK had that type of projects also. It is also EU funding, but from the cohesion policy. So we work typically with local companies and municipalities. And in this case we are, I will not take all this, it takes too much time, but what we are doing is to make not only cities smarter, but also the regions outside. North Sweden is fairly sparsely populated. My city has 72,000 inhabitants. It's one of the bigger ones, so you can imagine the villages, they are really small. But taking the smart city solutions also to the outskirt areas, smaller villages, it could be, we are working with augmented reality, where people coming to kind of a tourist place where we show old buildings, etc., can take the smartphone and have some added layers on top of it with information. And we also work with air quality sensors to check the air quality inside the cities. In my hometown we have the main road going just through the city, kind of the old-fashioned way, and so we have to monitor the air quality constantly actually. So these are different parts of that project. Organic City I already mentioned. What I could add there is that we do open calls. My university is responsible for the open calls, which means that it's not a fixed set of partners working in the projects, but new partners can be added, doing experiments based on the Organic City tools. I will not go through them all, but this is a set of tools that the project is providing, and the project is looking for new partners doing experiments in their home cities and taking the results forward. And one very important part is co-creation here. It should not only be computer scientists sitting to do their own things, but having end users, having kind of people on the street. It could be kids. My son is 12 years old, he's working with Scratch programming. It could be those types of people also doing very innovative, crazy stuff. So these open calls from Organic City are really asking for kind of people, man on the street to contribute also. The last project I could mention about is Smart Buy. It's a small Horizon 2020 Innovation Action project where we work together with an institute in Greece and two SMEs as it says, enhancing the buying experiences in smarter cities. And what we have seen is that it's typically a very divided situation where more and more people go for e-business, online shopping, where you could easily do price comparisons, you could see other users' reviews, and you can also see the availability. On the other hand, if you go to a local physical store, it might be convenient to just can try it out and you have immediate delivery. And then there are some cons. You cannot try it if you do it online, and delivery is not usually instantaneous. If you don't use Amazon, they are starting with drones to deliver their stuff over in US. We will see if it comes over here to Europe also. Local stores has their downs. So what we're trying to do here is to combine these two worlds in a project, linking it to Organicity in our lab, and let me go quickly here, basing it on the European Union's fire infrastructure. So it is basically a big group of projects focused around IoT, networking, big data, and 4 projects centered around smart cities. It's Organicity that I just mentioned, and Smart Buy, we are there also, and then 2 others. So it is about experimentation, cross-site, and using other installations of test labs, etc. So there's a clear ambition here to open up the ecosystem of laboratories and ease up not only for academic researchers but innovators to use it cross-European in kind of this type of fashion. So regardless if you sit here in Leeds or in Luleå or Nancy or whatever, you should be able to use test facilities all over Europe. So we do that in this type of scenario. A typical user is coming to a new city. He or she does maybe not know exactly where to go to buy a t-shirt or so. So he or she takes his smartphone, Smart Buy app, enters something, maybe that person is in urgent need for a PlayStation 3. Then also the locations for these in the vicinity local stores actually offering that type of product is shown, and the actual purchase itself is done not on the web but having people go into the stores. I have 1 minute left. I just want to mention a little about how we train students. Also, we're quite a big group from the PERCOM Erasmus Mundus program here, and that is ICT, green ICT, and also ICT for greening, but with the kind of main component which is computer science. So it's very glad to see 2 of the students here presenting later today. They have taken the journey from Nancy, then to Lappeenranta, St. Petersburg, and then finally to my place. And we train them in, as I said, green IT, ICT for sustainability. We have had 2 or 3 or 4 theses actually on smart cities, but I don't have the time to go into that. Good. This is something that we are doing every year. It's a competition taking place in November where students gather. We have 1 group in Nancy and 1 at my place, and they typically are assigned a task in could be around smart cities or IoT or fetching sensor data. And yeah, we had quite good result this year. Anna, Jonathan, I think we ended up as best team was number 4. So I said to the new students we should be on the medalist, either gold, silver or bronze. Good. This is Facebook in Luleå that we tend to visit with the last week, and we have very good support from there. So that's basically about how we work with smart cities. Thank you.